now is a great time to ask. So we speedily went through assignment 1 and talked about it. But are there any questions? I didn't really have a chance to, I didn't give you the opportunity to ask questions, unfortunately, but now I have lots of time. We've got no rush. Okay. So if you have any questions, anything I did, anything that was interesting or confusing, the process. Now, the process that I have for putting this together is going to differ every single time in terms of like what I do first, how I think about things, and your process is going to be different too. And I think that's because we're unique in how we think about the problems and how we solve the problems, right? So the fact that I did the header first might be different than what you think you should do first. Or like, to me, I like having things work. So I like getting something out onto the page, having HTML that works. And like, to me, that's like phase 1. And then once I get that, then I'm gonna focus on a component and I'll try to get that done. And then I'll go on to the next thing and I'll try to get that done. Some people like to take several passes through the entire program, and they're more interested in like, I don't care about the HTML and the CSS. I just wanna get data out. I wanna connect to the API. I wanna do, and that's fine too, right? Everyone's process is gonna be a little different. There is not one way to solve a problem. That is the way. So any questions, any comments, anything?
I have one.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at the solution. The process is almost as how I wrote, but when I looked at your demo, working demo, and opened the React component on the DevTools, yours would show the new prop and like the lists and arrays and everything. Mine, it works fine. It's built almost exactly the same way, but it wouldn't show any of the new props or show me the arrays or the list. It just shows the state.
So you have to make sure that when you're, so what did I call it? What did I call it? Let's grab it here. You have to make sure that you're looking at the right component, right? So when you're using this, this React debugger here, okay? And we're gonna look up a title. When you're using this debugger, you have to be sure that you're looking at the right component. So, this is a really, really bad one to look at because it's all uglified. And so like none of the components are properly named. Let me get it started over here so we can actually see this one run instead, because it'll be better. Is that what you're talking about, Saria? Is this stuff here?
Yeah, no, the stuff at the bottom after the A, props and state. Mine doesn't show any props or any state, but it works.
Yeah, it will. It does. It's just you got to look at the right component. So once this gets going, I'll show you. I think this is why you're probably not seeing it, and it's probably worth taking a look at. Okay. Once this gets going, eventually.
Hey, John.
Hi.
I was just a little late. Can I?
Oh yeah. Just email me the check.
Yeah. Don't worry. Just take it off YouTube.
Oh yeah, that's right.
How was the meeting?
Long and boring. 1 hour. You missed. All I was doing was talking for 5 minutes, but I had to be on my toes for the entire time just in case. So okay, so we're going to inspect this one. Okay, so I'll type in fight. Okay, bring up the components here, and so you don't see anything right now. Right? You don't see anything. And if I click on app, you'll see the state for app. If I click on header, so you'll see the state and the props for app. Now, app doesn't have any props, so you don't see anything, but you see its state. If I click on header, header has state and props. So it's got the props and it's got the state. Movie has no state, only props. So You see no state, only props. So depending on the components that you're clicking on, that's going to change what you get. The really cool thing about this too is that you can change these, right? So you can change this stuff here. Just like you can edit HTML, you can edit these things here too, which is really cool. So you can actually see in real time what would happen if you edited some of this stuff. Yeah. So I don't know, like I can't see what you're doing, but that is what I think is happening. Okay. Yeah.
I'm trying it now. The props, state, source part, anything, even if I click and specifically like tell it what to look at, it doesn't show anything. It only shows the movie and other A and stuff like that, keys. I think I just didn't configure it right or something.
You shouldn't have to configure it. I didn't configure it at all. It just is. Right now, with respect to mine, I mean, like, you know what? Let's take this offline after, and I'll take a look and see if I can get it working with you. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but
Yeah.
watching you do it and seeing how quickly you got through the toggle was super fucking frustrating.
Okay, so here's the thing. Like, I've got a lot of experience. I've done this, right? I did it because I did it before I asked you to do it. So I know, obviously I know what I'm doing, right? And so the speed at which I do things is going to be, and like how I think about things, and like I'll say things like, I just have to do this and I just have to do that. And it's like, I don't run into the same problems anymore that you're experiencing. And you should be frustrated. You should be frustrated with programming. I read your basic chat, like your Discord, and I'm laughing to myself. So someone made a comment about how much swearing there must be in software development environments. Yes, constantly. F-bombs being dropped all the time. It's like everyone's wearing headphones. It's silent, and all you hear is fuck, shit. And then all of a sudden you'll hear a yes, high five, right? Like, so there's all those, like, those emotions that you're experiencing right now. It's like that all the time. You don't see me express it because I'm doing things I've done before. You're experiencing it though, because you're being pushed to your limits. You're being asked to build things you've never built before. You're struggling. And that is the real deal. What I'm doing, this is not software development, how I'm doing it. I'm doing it fast. I'm doing like bang, 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 bang. That is not what it's really like. Okay? Never is it like that. I wish sometimes that you can watch me build things from scratch when I'm trying to build these projects for you, because, well, it takes me time to cook up what I'm trying to get you to do, but it also, like, I screw up all the time. And like, I have to think through these problems like, how am I going to do this? Is this too hard? Is this too easy? Is this right? And like, how am I even going to do it? So this one actually took me a little bit of time. That toggle did take me, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, about an hour, maybe 45 minutes. I don't know. But
that
like,
makes me feel better.
You should struggle. Okay. So don't take it like, I just plow through it, because I look at my watch and I'm like, okay, I've got an hour to do this. So let's go. And plus I want to keep your attention-ish. I mean, you have a window of attention too. So don't feel bad. Is there anything that you want me to expand on with respect to that? With respect to anything like that I covered that you didn't feel like I gave a reasonable enough treatment to this morning?
No, it totally made sense. Like
Okay.
it made sense when I saw you do it. Just I didn't get there.
Yeah, and that's okay, right? And that's okay. And that's like these contain a lot of different pieces. And so you may get 90% of the pieces. And then out of those 90% of the pieces, you may get 80% of that correct. So you know, like that is why we have a scale of grades. But that's okay, right? In the real world, that's not okay, unfortunately, right? In the real world, it's like it's either done or it's not done. But it's different. It's different in the real world. You can come back to your manager and you can say, this is harder than I expected. I need more time. Or this is harder than I expected. Are you sure that they want this? Because it's going to cost a lot of money because it's so difficult, right? And you have senior developers to talk with. You have a team to work through problems with. It's not all solely on your shoulders, hopefully, unless you're the only software developer at that company, which is frightening. Okay, no one should have just one software developer.
I would kind of like that though.
It's nice, but like honestly, I love working as a team because I need someone to police me. Otherwise, I'm going to make some bad decisions. I need someone to question me and say, John, are you sure that's the best thing you can do? Are you sure that's the right solution? Or just to talk it out or give me a different perspective of things. Otherwise, left to my own devices, like it might turn out great. It might turn out terrible. I think it's just, having two people work together on a problem is better than one person. Having someone to discuss things with really, really helps. So, and I hope we're at a point now where the problems that we're having are so complex that you can talk to your fellow students about how to solve it, right? So this is what I did. I put the state over here because to me that made more sense. Because right now the applications we have so many moving parts that if two people are copying, they pretty much have to copy everything. And by then it's like, but the discussions that can happen are way different than the discussions that could have happened 2 months ago when we're literally writing 3 lines of code. And coming up with that solution is the whole point. So it's very interesting. So leverage your classmates, talk to them. Don't necessarily show each other code, but talk through the problems. I'm cool with that at this point. Talk through the problems. I'm cool with that. Don't show each other code. Okay.
Also, thank you for making time for us, like after school hours.
Oh,
I know
it's my pleasure.
Really annoying.
No. If I was like, sometimes I'm just sitting there on the couch with my phone, right? And it's kind of one of those things where you get addicted to it, right? People get addicted to social media. I get addicted to I wonder if someone's messaged me back yet about that thing that I messaged. And so sometimes my answers can be very short and very succinct, but that's only because I'm typing on my phone. If I'm at my computer, I'll be like, yeah, sure, let's jump on it. But I get tired of sitting at my computer all day. So, I mean, as I'm sure you can feel, right? Especially sitting in this desk. I see Bing always right? It hurts, doesn't it, Bing? Just sitting in this thing. I usually stand in the afternoons. All right. So, anything else?
Yeah, I have a question, John.
Yep.
So I use set state. After that, I use the state, but it doesn't really update it yet. How I can handle this?
So immediately after, so let me just see if I understand you correctly. Let me bring up that. I switch tabs here. After. Oh. It's twice. Okay. So to to see if I understand you correctly, you use set state, and then after you use this dot state, but the state has not yet updated yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. But in the line 16, after line 16, inside the then.
What I would do is I would use that before. So I wouldn't use state. But so for example, if you're using stuff from JSON.results and you're doing some sort of logic, I would use that before set state. The thing is, I would put set state as one of the last things I do. Why?
That's why, because it's asynchronous, but what happens if I want to?
That is why it's asynchronous. So you don't know when this is going to happen. But the other question is, the big thing for me is, yes, it's asynchronous, but the other big thing is that this causes a chain reaction of events to occur, right? Line 17, not only is it asynchronous, but after it happens, this thing happens again. And then headers render happens. So like every time we update state, it triggers this just chain reaction of all these components updating the view. They re-render. And so I don't like to do things after. No, right? This should be one of the last, in my opinion, this should be one of the last things you should do. Okay? If you need to do other logic before set state, you go ahead and do that, because you should have all the information. If you need to access something inside state that's currently in state, you can always ask for it, this dot state, right? And you can do some other stuff. Or if you need to access the results of the movies, you can do that before, with the last thing being results. Does that make sense, Willie?
I got it. So it's no, I didn't this project. I was testing another thing, but it made sense. So I will do that.
This whole thing around state is like one of the cornerstones of React. And if you understand you shouldn't touch state, that set state's asynchronous, that it triggers all sorts of like events to occur afterwards, that we can't touch state directly. So if you understand state, I really feel like you can really understand React. If you don't get this idea of set state and why we shouldn't touch it, and and that it's asynchronous, and what happens when we modify it, then you're going to struggle a lot. So it's really, really important to understand the concept of state in React. Okay, if you don't quite grasp that, go back, watch some videos. Okay, some of the videos that I've had. Okay, I'm sure you have already, and really try to get that nailed down. Okay, this part for me is always a little bit of a like, how do I update this without modifying it? That's always a little bit of a head scratcher. And again, we have some patterns, but sometimes things fall a little bit outside the patterns, and complexity arrives, right? And that's all part of it. That's all part of programming. Some of this stuff is just really simple. Some of this stuff can be really complex. That's programming. Any other questions? Okay, so big new topic today, and kind of our last topic. Okay, and this is React Router. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to open up two things. Let's see. So I'm gonna, so I'm gonna pop this open, and I'm just gonna copy. I'm I need to flip back and forth between this stuff because I've got some HTML and CSS in here that I need. Yeah, I've got some HTML and CSS in here that I'm going to need. I think. Let me just steal this. Create a contact page, actually. And then I'll just create a new file here, and dump that in. And then I'll change the status. So we're going to talk about React Router. I just need to get myself set up here. So we're going to go back to, I hope this isn't in a good state. We're going to go back to our contacts application that we've been building in class. Okay, and we're going to take a look at it. I'm going to clean it up a little bit. If I can. I don't remember where I left off. Let's see, app, does it still have the, good. Cool. All right. Kill this, we'll kill that. Just wait for a second. While this is loading up, let's talk about React Router. So there's some reading here that I gave you, React. So we're going to be looking at React Router. And again, like everything in React land, the way that people are building this stuff is going to vary dramatically, right? In some of the examples you see, people don't have it broken up into separate components with imports. They have it all in one file. Right? And yes, React can be written like that, all in one file. We technically don't need to break it up into separate files. It can literally be all in one file. We could have multiple classes and multiple functions in the same file, and those are components. But that's just not how we do it. That's not how we do it in class. But in a lot of examples, like this React Router one, that's what you're going to see. And so you have to be able to distinguish. You have to be able to look at that and say, okay, I see what they're doing here. They've got multiple components. And I'll show you, actually, you can see this in their quick start. See, they have multiple components. This is so in this example on the right-hand side, they have, this is just one giant React app. All these things down here, function users, this is the users component. It's a stateless functional component. Stateless functional component, stateless functional component. We would have created a new file called home about users. And we would have done this imports and these exports, but technically this is perfectly acceptable too. Not common, because as developers, we like to separate things, right? But when you're demonstrating how to use something and you just want to show one block, this is how they do it, right? Because now they can show all their code in one, just for a sample, for an example, for a tutorial, right? So this really works in that way. So when you're looking at Code Wars and you're looking at how are they writing React, they're probably writing React more like this, where it's all just one block of code with no imports. And that's fine. That works. We just have to be able to understand, why are we doing it in multiple files? Why are they doing it in one file? What's a component, what's not, right? The better understanding we have of that, the better we are equipped to interpret this type of stuff. Okay, so everything should be loaded now. Perfect, we have this. Okay, so this is where we left off. Iron Man. Okay, so we left off, we've got contacts, we can, so actually, last time we left off, we were downloading contacts. I was showing you component did mount and we're displaying that. I'm going to step further back and we're just going to have the existing contacts. And instead, what we're going to do is we're going to make it so when I push this button here, plus this create contact, what it's going to do is it's going to actually bring us to a new page. And on this new page, it's going to have a little form and we're going to be able to create the contact, okay? So that's our goal, okay? And then we're going to be able to come back. So our goal is to create a single JavaScript application that makes it feel like we have multiple pages, like we can click around and click through it, but it's actually just one JavaScript application. And in order to do that, we want, this is not the only thing that does that, but this is one of the things that does that, React Router, okay? React Router. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow the quick start and I'll walk you through it a little bit because by me walking through the documentation with you, if you come back and visit the documentation on your own after, you'll have at least an explanation of like, oh, John mentioned this in the video. I can just go back and make that connection. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do, if we look at the quick start, and again, it's linked on the course website. Okay. We have a React app already. We're going to install React Router DOM. React Router DOM. So you can just copy that and we're going to in-class sample. Okay. So I'm going to do an npm install React Router DOM. Okay, so this is step one. And this will take a couple seconds. Okay. And then we'll have to, so this is a very stepwise process. And there's not a lot of problem solving going on here, but more of an application of a tool. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to apply this tool. So this isn't actually, there's several steps which may make it seem complicated, but really it's a repetitive process. Kind of like how Gulp can seem a little complicated at first, but then you realize it's like same thing over and over again. Okay, so great. We have React Router DOM installed. So first thing we have to do is we have to go to a file that we haven't gone to in a long time. And actually, you'll see over here, again, they're importing all this stuff at the top. Browser router, as router, switch, route, link, all from React Router DOM. So they have this large, complicated import. They're importing everything because they need everything in here. Okay? I'll show you how we do it, how we're going to implement this in our app. So the first thing we're going to look at is browser router, as router. We don't need to include this as. All that does is allow us to change the name if we want. We don't want to change the name. We're fine using it as the word browser router. So we're going to bring this import browser router. We're going to bring that, we're going to use it inside index.js, a file that we have not touched in a very long time, because this is the root of our application, believe it or not. Our root is not app.js. Our root is index.js. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap our entire application in a component called browser router. So we're going to import browser router, and pay attention to the syntax here. It's a little bit different. Okay, this means we're only importing one piece from React Router DOM. We're importing one component, not the entire thing, not all of React, but only one piece. Okay. So this is a component, and all we need to do is this. We wrap, and this can go, I think this can go inside or outside of strict mode, inside or outside of this, but I'm putting it inside. Browser router, open, close, and we wrap our app inside of it. Okay, that's step one. We wrap the entire app inside of browser router in index.js. So that is that first piece right here. And this piece that they're demonstrating right here, router. The whole thing is their whole app, which is very simple, is wrapped in this router. But again, they're demonstrating this as one file, and so it looks different, and they're using some different naming, but the concept is the same. We're wrapping it in router. If we wanted to change this to router instead of browser router, we can say as anything, right? Any name that we want, and then we're wrapping it inside that new name that we gave it. It just so happens that they're calling it browser router as router. So use this as this. My name's John, but I go by some other name, okay? My name is browser router, but I can go by whatever name you want me to go by. That's what's happening here. So, but we're not going to do that. That's like, to me, this is bad documentation because that just makes it more complicated. So we've got browser router. We're going to update these components here, just like that. Okay. Now we're done with this. We're done with index.js. Close that. Next piece. Okay, next piece. Now what we're going to do is we're going to separate our app into pages. Okay, and how this works is we create, so we can identify a component as a page. Okay, and we can tell it inside our renders, we can say, if the URL looks like this, render this component. Otherwise, if it looks like something else, render this component. So what we're essentially doing is we can conditionally decide what to render. So imagine this. I have this over here. Imagine I have this form over here. I'm going to copy this. This is the stuff I copied from my previous, my sample. So imagine I have this form, and this is my create contact form. Okay, and we're going to go to app.js, and I'm going to put this in at the top above my input. I have this form that is going to allow me to create new contacts. Now I'm going to just get rid of these on-change events, otherwise I'm going to get a big error. Okay, and I'll show you how this kind of comes to be. So I'll go back over here, and I have this super terrible, super ugly form. The CSS is really bad. Okay, now I don't want this form on this page. I want this form to exist on a separate page on its own. And my idea is that when I click this little plus, it brings me to that page, and I can fill in the form, and I hit submit, and then it creates a new contact, and I can come back to my contacts page, and I can see this new contact has been added. So I have these two pages, right? So this form is going to be placed, it doesn't need to be in a component, right? As we know in React, we can put things into components or we don't have to, right? It could be just a bunch of JSX in here. But as we know, we like to take these pieces and break them off into components. But either way, what we're essentially doing is we're going to wrap this stuff in a conditional decision that says, if I'm at this URL, show this form. Otherwise, show this other stuff. And I'll show you how to do that. I'll keep this form here so we can actually see how that looks. I won't put it in a component just yet. Okay. Do we have a handle input? Oh, it's interesting. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is I just have this super terrible, super ugly form that takes in the name, the email, the avatar URL to create a new contact. Okay. Nothing special. And I just copied and pasted it in here. Okay, this stuff doesn't exist yet. We'll deal with that later. Okay, I'm going to show you how we can conditionally show and hide pieces of our JSX with React Router. So the first thing we're going to need is we're going to go back to the React Router documentation, and we're going to see that, again, I mentioned earlier, it has all this stuff. We need to use two things from here, switch and route. Okay, so we're going to need those two pieces, switch and route. So we're going to import switch, comma, route. So both of those two pieces from React Router doc. Okay. The way it works is switch is kind of like the outer shell. So it works like this. Switch. Okay. And inside switch, we're going to put the two things that we can, or not the two things, the many different conditional pieces that we want to be able to show. So for example, we have routes. So a route is one of these. So it looks like this, route. And we say the path of the route is, and the path is the URL. So for example, if I only want to show this create contact form when the URL is a specific URL like create contacts, then I would put this form inside the route, inside switch called create contact. So now this little piece here, this little piece of JSX will only be displayed when the URL is something, 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 localhost port 3000 or whatever, right? / create contact. When it is that, then it will show this form. Now, things can exist outside of switch. Switch can be inside of JSX. So here's the interesting and terrible thing. So when I go to my base URL, my root URL, okay, just slash, see? That form is not shown. But when I go to / create contacts, create contact, that form is conditionally shown based on that URL. So if this URL / create contact exists, then show it. So it's essentially like a giant if statement. If URL is create contact, show the form, and always show this. Right? This is essentially an if else inside of here, inside the switch. Okay. Now here's the thing. When I'm showing this form, I don't want to show all this other stuff. I just want to show the form, right? So it's I either want to show the filter and the contacts or the form, not both together, because look at the disaster we're looking at. I want to make it feel like it's two distinct pages. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an additional route, and you can have as many routes as you want, right? It's like an if, else if, else if, else if. We can have as many as we want. So we're going to add another route, and we're going to say route. If the path is slash, then display this stuff. Wait, I have two divs on the top here. Missing a closing div, I feel like. Contacts top. What's contacts? Oh, that's interesting.
The route closing?
Yeah, the top is this top here. Sorry, it's just a disorganization of my divs here. I'm gonna have to include that one in here and then copy this. There we go. That's not quite right. Then this one goes outside. Sorry, just a disorganization of my divs here. So this is the closing div for this, and then there's its own div inside of here. But the same rules apply. It's going to yell at me if I don't have, because I'm returning two things. One parent, two parents. It's going to yell at me. It only wants one fragment. Okay. When I go back to cart, oh, no, it's not going to yell at me? Okay, cool. You sure? Okay, cool. So what we did is we say, if the path is slash display this stuff. If the path is create contact, display this thing. So now it feels like we have two pages. It's really not. It's really just JavaScript destroying a big piece of the DOM and inserting new HTML. That's what's happening. But with JavaScript, we have under the hood, under React Router, we have access to the browser's URL bar. We have access to the history. We have access to modify everything so it looks and feels like it's a multi-page application when really it's just one page. Okay, single page app. Not all apps are made this way, right? This is a special breed of apps. One of the things we have to be careful with, though, is we have to be careful with these paths, because if we put them in the wrong order, okay, everything will render. See, create contact renders this stuff. Because what happens is it looks for the first path that matches. And it only needs to match a piece of it, not the whole thing. So the really interesting part is if I said CRE, okay, that is a piece of it. You see, that's a piece, and that's enough of a piece that it matches. So it just has to match a substring of the path, not the entire string of the path. So you have to be careful of the order in which you put these routes. Or you can just say exact. And then they must match perfectly. So now it doesn't matter in the order in which I put them, the route has to match perfectly. So now it doesn't matter the order in which I put them. It doesn't just find the first match. It matches it matches exactly. So we only have a match now for slash, and we only have a match now for create contact. So if I put in create contacts, this doesn't work. But if I took out this exact path, well, create contact is a substring of create contacts, in which case it would work. It should work. Oh, I have to save it. Yeah. Create contacts. Okay. So we want to put that exact in there because it gives us that, it's a little bit easier to manage. We don't have to worry about order anymore. Okay, and that's in this course. If you want to build something more complex, okay, and you want to like manage like, oh, if this page isn't there, I'd rather drive them over here, and you could get super complicated with things here. But the main point is that we put these routes inside this switch. Think of it like a switch statement. Think of it like a switch statement, okay? The outside is the switch, and these are the different conditions. Condition 1, is the URL this? Yes, okay, show that. Condition 2, is the URL this? Yes, okay, show that. It's only going to run one of these. You can have as many of these switch statements as you want. I can put another one down here with another set of routes in it, or I can just have JSX outside, just like that, right? No problem, or I don't need to. Okay, it's pretty flexible, very flexible. And obviously we're importing switch and route because we're using switch and route. Just like in app.js, we imported browser router because we needed to wrap the whole thing in browser router, right? So it's like a direct import of what we need. We're not importing things that we don't need. Okay, so I've actually created a thing here that I'm conditionally showing. I'm conditionally showing this form. Now, this form really should be its own component, okay? So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a little file here. I'm going to say contact form.js, and I'm going to move that to its own component. Class, this got inputs, so it's going to need some state. Okay, class contact form ends React.component render equals blah blah. So, and we'll do a return here. These things, paste that in. Set this. Okay, so we have our input. Oh, this is the search. Ugh. Not what I wanted. This one is what I wanted. So paste that in here. Okay, so we have our form here. Great. And now, instead, I'm going to export defaults contact form. So, and import React from React. Okay, there we go. Standard component, nothing special. Regular old stuff. Now we need to use that over here. So we're going to import that. Contact form. Okay. So instead now of displaying this piece, what we're going to do is we're going to display this route. Okay, so we're going to display this component. So we're going to say contact form. So now we're wrapping this route, sorry, we're wrapping this component in this route. Nothing special. And we come over here, create contact. There we go. See, we just moved it to its own component and the roots. Great. So it feels like 2 pages. You could do the same thing over here too, if you wanted to. If you want to have a contact component or whatever, right? Contact component. We do have a contact. Yeah, we do have a contact component. Now, the trick here is that if we want to pass props to this, we can't inside of this route by default. It gets a little, this is where it gets where we have to make a little bit of do a little trick. I can't just pass props down to this contact form, unfortunately. What I have to do is if I wanted to pass props, I need to do this. I need to add another piece to route. And this is not in the documentation in the quick start guide. Okay, this is way down here in route render methods, route props. Okay, if I want to, right here, render func. Okay, so if you're watching this video again, you need help with this and you want to identify the piece of documentation that goes along with it, it's down here under route render func. So if I want to pass in a, if I want to pass in props to this contact form, I have to say render equals open JavaScript. And then my route, I'm only going to have one open close route. I'm not going to, it's just going to be one, like I'm not going to, it's going to be a self-closing component. Kind of like how this is a self-closing component. I don't have contact form, close contact form, right? Instead, I just do a self-closing component like that, just like a self-closing element. So I'm not going to have that for this route because it's going to be self-closing now because there's not going to be anything inside of it. Instead, what's going to happen is we're going to move this contact form to inside here. Inside of this render attribute, we're going to have a function. Okay, and this is where we're going to put in our contact form. And this is how we have to, if we're going to do map or we're going to do any of that, it has to happen inside of here. Got a little too many, no, that's fine. And gotta have, sorry, one of these things instead. Okay, so this works too. This render. So if we want to pass props, which we're going to often, so you, in all honesty, you probably should be doing it this way instead anyways for this course. In real life, you're going to want to pick the right one, but in this course, it's safest just to do it like this, because then you don't have to worry about whether or not you can or cannot pass props. This will just work for you. So create contact still works. Okay. Now I'm not passing any props, but if I wanted to, now I can. In this format, I can't. It doesn't let you. Okay. So let's make this contact form work. Okay. The first thing I should do, the first thing I want to do is I want to make it so that this, this button goes to my contact form. Okay, I have no way of getting there other than updating this URL. I want to create a link to it. And you'd think, oh, let's just put an A tag on there and put the right URL. but we don't want to do it like that because there's a lot of other things that need to go on because JavaScript is managing this URL, JavaScript is managing the history, JavaScript is managing all this other stuff. And we actually don't want the browser to reload, right? We want, because this is called create contacts. This is causing the page to reload the entire page, everything. We don't want to do that. What we want is we want React to destroy some of the DOM and replace it. And so we don't want to cause the browser to redirect them. And so instead of using the A tag, what we're going to use up here where we have this on click add contact, okay, we're going to change this to a link. And this is a special React router piece. Link, and if we go back all the way back to the quick start, you'll see that's one of the pieces that we didn't pull in, link. Okay. Link, we brought in browser router, switch, route, and link. So we're going to bring in link now as well, because we're going to need link. And this will create the A tag for us, and it'll do a bunch of other stuff under the hood that we don't need to worry about. And all we have to say is this, link, where are we going? Where does this A tag or where does this link bring us to? And it brings us to create contact. Close. We can put all the same stuff inside here. Class name, no problem. And then add contact goes in there, just like text. So it's almost like an A tag. It's just not an A tag. But it will render an A tag in the HTML. Okay, so this will be an A tag in the HTML. So we save that and we look, come back over here. Okay, it looks exactly the same. But now when we click on it, click, it brought us to our create contact page. And it didn't reload the browser. And look, my forward and back functions are updating the URL. They work. And you don't see this flash up here of this icon spin as though the browser's loading a new page, because it's not. It's a single page application that feels like it's multiple pages. And this is what React Router does. This is what's happening here. The DOM is getting destroyed and replaced via JavaScript. And it happens so fast. And the reason why this is beneficial over a multi-page application is because it's faster to just destroy some of the DOM and replace it than it is to go to a server, get some new HTML, get some new CSS, get some new JavaScript, load up some new images, right? It's and then paint everything. It's way faster just to destroy a little piece of HTML and put some new HTML in. So that's why these single page applications are becoming more and more common, because we can do, it feels like multi-page, but it's not, and it's snappier, it's faster, okay? So we have this. What we should do is we should probably add a back button to this add contact page as well, so we can go back, okay? I think I have that too, I do. I have a link over here that's going to add to the contact form. Okay, so we'll just add this link to the contact form called close, and we'll wrap that in a div because I can only return, well, I mean, I could wrap that in a fragment too. Could be a div, could be a fragment, whatever you want. Okay, oh, that was a fragment. And we get, it says link is not defined because I didn't import link on this component, right? So I need to, just like everything else, if I want to use link on that component, I need to import it from React Router DOM so I can use it. So I don't need to import all three of these things this time because I don't need switch and I don't need route. And you can see they're grayed out. I just need link. And that will allow me to put this close link on there. And close links to slash. So it kind of gives me that back button. So if I refresh this page, actually, go here. Oh, and my CSS is busted because I need this back arrow here. That. There we go. So I have the back button. So these two pages are linked together. Okay. Now, with respect to everything else, how props get transferred, how methods get called, and all that stuff, still exactly the same. So I'm just going to hook that up really quickly. So that's React Router. That's it. There's nothing else. Okay. I'm going to hook up the rest really quickly so we can just have a little bit more stuff so we can make this working. Okay. So this contact form, I'm probably going to need to create a new contact, which I'm already doing. I already have a create contact function from before that I wrote like 3 classes ago. All it does is it takes 3 strings, name, email, avatar, right? So I can create a new contact here, name, email, avatar, pushes that new contact into state, and we're off to the races. So I already have that function, but it's not app's responsibility anymore it's responsibility to create the avatar, to create the contact and update the state, but it doesn't have the form. Contact form is the component where all those inputs are. So we're going to pass it, sorry. So we're going to pass it down, just like we would any other way, like this. Nothing else has changed. Okay, so on create contacts equals create contact, or stop create contact. And then inside our contact form, we have that create contact. So now we're going to need, but we have these 3 inputs. We're going to need to track control those inputs. So this is where Saria's question from this morning really comes in handy. Instead of having 3 separate functions to take it, so first of all, we need state here in this component, right? Again, this is outside of React Router. This is just normal React that we're writing, very in the similar vein of the stuff that we did this morning. We need to control these inputs. So we need a piece of state for each of those inputs. So we're going to say name field is empty string. Email field is empty string. And avatar URL field. And again, naming convention will be different for everyone, or even different depending on when I do it, okay? It's going to be empty string. So they're all starting off as empty string. We're going to set all these values to be this.state.name field. Okay, so we're going to just copy and paste this real quick. Email field. Avatar URL field, okay? But now we also, so we have the values being pushed down, but now we also need to have the onChange event on each of them. So onChange equals, and here's where the question from this morning comes into play. Instead of having 3 different functions to manage each of these, I'm going to write one function, this.update field. And we're going to allow this to use this name. And actually, if I named these a little bit better, if I named these relative to the name, it would work easier. So if I didn't put, if I named them the same as the input name, then it works perfectly. So avatar URL is actually incorrect. It should be lowercase. And then I'll fix these up too. Okay, and you'll see why that works out perfectly. So I'm going to write one function. So when I on change of any of these, it will call update field. I get the event. And what's going to happen here is I'm going to say this.setState. And depending on who it was, which one of these inputs that triggered this function, I'm going to ask for its name. Who did this? And that comes in e.target.name. So I get the name of the input that caused this event to trigger, e.target.name. And I'm going to set the value of its state to e.target.value. So I get the value from value, and I get the name from name, but this is not correct syntax. If you want to be dynamic with how you set your objects, and this is not new, this is 2 months ago, we have to wrap this in brackets. So this allows us to dynamically say, oh, it is the name field that we want to update. Oh, it's the email field that we want to update. Oh, it's the avatar field that we want to update. So this allows us to dynamically have one function to manage all the inputs if we want. Okay. So now we have a control form. So now when we come over to this page here and we type into these fields and we look at the state, it's all controlled. Router app. And I am missing, oh, there we go. Oof. It adds a lot of extra stuff here. Contact form, and you can see the state. Boop, boop, boop. And then finally, on submit of this form, we wanted to call this on create contact. So on submit, this dot props dot on create contact, and we want to pass it all these 3 pieces of information. But again, same problem that we had before. I need to cancel the default of this form. So I need to say form. I can't call this directly because I need to do a couple things when someone submits this form. 1, I need to obviously create the contact. 2, I need to prevent the default. And 3, I want to reset these values here. Okay, so you can create multiple contacts. So let's do that. So we're going to say create contact equals e.prevent default. This will prevent the default action of the form. Then we're going to say, and then go and create that contact. And here, go take, what does it take? It takes name, email, avatar. So we need to pass in those 3 strings, and we have those in state right here. This.state.name, this.state.email, and this.state.avatar URL. And then after we create the contact, now we're going to empty out the state. I'll say this.state. And we're going to reset those 3 values. Name is empty string, email is empty string, and avatar URL is empty string. And
no set state.
Oh yeah, I do need a set state. I've got, so I need to set that state, and then I need to say on submit, call this function. Create contact. And when we come over here, so we start at the beginning, we click plus, We come over here, we say John Neisel at mxpt.ca, and we'll go get a picture. Nice headshot here. There we go. This is my profile photo. Copy image address, and we'll paste that in. Pow. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Add contact. Now, let's go see. Hey, there I am. Multi-page application.
You use JSON's data.
So, questions. Now, I'm leaving out a lot of stuff that React Router can do. Okay. Again, this is basics. This is what you need for this course that I'm asking you to do. There's a bunch of other stuff that you can do with this. It goes so deep. Okay. If you dream about it, you can do it. Okay. So trust me. But this is all I'm going to ask you to do.
Question?
Yep.
Two of them. One I asked before, but I think I forgot. ePrevent default. Sometimes it goes at the top line inside the function, and sometimes it goes at the end. Does it make any difference?
Nope, no difference. As long as it occurs in the function.
Right. And the second one is the path name, like the slash thing.
Yeah.
Is it arbitrarily made? Is it set within the route Swift thing?
Slash, so whenever you see slash inside the
main page,
it's always relative to the top level domain. So it's always relative to this. So this can change, like the stuff before, so it could be mitt.ca slash. So it's always relative to that last slash here after the domain. Okay. So after the .ca or .com, there's that slash. So that whenever you see that slash, it's referring to the root. This is always the root of the website, this piece right here, right? So just this. So when we're talking about localhost port 3000, right? So the nice thing is it doesn't matter what this part is. So when I push this up to Firebase, it's still slash, right? It's the root of the application. Now you can remove that, and it can be relative if you wanted it to be, but we're not going to deal with that. So this is what you decide it to be, whatever you want. If you want this URL to be different, and instead of create contact, let's call it create. That's fine too. Now
so it's arbitrary.
Arbitrary.
Okay.
Yeah, up to you. There you go. Create whatever we want.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Remember, switch is like a giant switch statement, and we have routes inside. And I highly recommend that you render your components this way. Otherwise, if you don't, these will not work the way you would expect. And if they do, I would be very, very surprised. See, it's not even, oh, it's create now. Oh, it did work. Interesting. Okay, well, sometimes I'm wrong. So apparently it works, but just be careful. Just be careful. At least you have two. At least you have two different versions. Okay. And again, inside here, it's just more JSX, right? So we can still put parentheses. We can still go contact.map or whatever we need to, however we need to do it. We still have access to everything. Okay. I have this available already. So I'll just paste the, this is not the exact sample, but it's almost identical as the sample. There's one little piece that I did in here that is, I do this one little thing with history where after you create a contact, it shoots you back to the home page. So you don't only need to be able to go back to the home page with link or like direct people with links. You can also do something called history.push and then just push in a URL and it'll just bring you there. I can show you that if you want. You won't need it in this course, but I do it in the sample. I do this history.push. So this will force someone to get redirected back programmatically. So instead of them clicking on a link to change the URL, this allows you to just like force something to happen based on an action, like an on submit or an on change, history.push, and it automatically goes to the URL, changes it, and the browser moves to that URL. Okay, so that's just one thing. You don't need that. I just have that in this sample, but I neglected to go over it because you don't really need it for this course. But if you're interested and you want to go further, other than that, everything else is the same. So I'll give you the URL for this branch here. Any questions? We're almost done. I just got to go over the exercise for you this weekend. Okay, no questions? Okay, let's look at the exercise for the weekend. This weekend, it's a rehash. Did I go over this already? With some of you, right? Yeah. So it's a rehash of the e-commerce cart, okay? So this time we're doing the cart again, but we're breaking it down into separate pages. Okay, separate pages. So we have our main page with the items, and we have a different page with the cart. To get to the cart page, you click on this cart icon at the top right. Click. Couple little interesting things. A lot of this is going to be like redoing the stuff. You can use your existing code if you want, or you can start over. Sometimes I find that using existing code confuses me because I'm like adding a little bit and changing a little bit. But the thing is, most of the problems are the same, right? Like, how do I add a product to the cart? How do I remove a product from it? All those things you've already solved. So restarting from the beginning is not going to take you the same amount of time. You're going to speed through it really quick because you already know how to do things. That's good practice, okay? So like adding stuff to the cart, removing things from the cart, that's all the same. It's just some of the HTML, some of the diffs, some of the pieces are going to be a little bit different. So I do recommend starting over, but if you do want to use your previous stuff, you can go ahead. Okay, just be aware. It can get dicey. So this time we have our little cart. We have separate pages, obviously React Router for that. The other thing I added is just make it a little bit nicer. So you see up here in the cart, we have $0 and 0 items. What do you think is going to happen when I add my first item? It's probably going to increase the amount of items and show me the value. Boop, 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 boop. Right? And you can see the amount of going up. Okay. Click on the cart. I see those items in my cart. I can take items away. Boop, boop. Those items go down. Note, 2 items, 1 item, 0 items. Okay, you have the whole weekend, so I gave you little things to work on. This is a more realistic application where it's like things are actually happening. We have a little, your cart is empty. When your cart is empty, it just doesn't show anything. A link to go back to the shopping page. Okay, a link to go to the cart, link to go back to the shopping page. Okay, so you have access to this. You can take a look. My components are in here if you want to take a look, but don't cheat yourself out of some good learning. Okay, again, same API endpoint. I give you your HTML and CSS that you need to use if you want, or if you want to try writing your own stuff, be my guest. Okay, you'll need to add 2 routes, a cart route and a / route. Okay, if you want to change the name of them, that's fine. Play around with it. I'm not picking these up. Okay, call them whatever you want, but this is what I'm just making this recommendation. And then 4 components, same as before. Okay. Other than that, not a lot is different. Take this as far as you want. If you finish early, I think one cool thing that this is an extension, not necessary for this course, would be go take a look at the React Router documentation and figure out how to make individual product pages. So that way, when you click on a mouse, it brings you to the product page for that mouse. Okay, because that's a thing that we don't cover, and that's a really big thing to having a multi-page app, right? That's one of the key pieces we're missing. So go take a look at that. If you're done. If you're not, that's fine. I won't be covering that on Monday. But if you do decide to take that on and you do have questions, ping me and I'll see if I can give you a hand. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for pausing for my meeting there. I appreciate the extra time that you've given me today. I'm going to go take lunch. I have not gotten out of this chair since 8:30 this morning. So I need to stretch my legs, need to use the bathroom, need to go for a walk and have some food. I will be back probably at 1, but I'm going to be taking off a little bit early today because I got to bring my car in to get serviced. So I'm going to be calling it a day at 3. Okay, so if you need anything, try to get me before 3 o'clock. Otherwise, I won't be back until quite a bit later because I have to run some errands and stuff. Or shoot me something this weekend and I'll see if I can give you a hand. Okay. The assignments are going to get looked at starting immediately to try to provide you with feedback as early as possible. Next, no 2 assignments, right? 1 assignment, that was the assignment. Final project coming, I want to say Tuesday. I want to go over this on Monday and I want to do 1 more thing. Okay. Not covering anything new. We're just going to do 1 more piece of practice. And then we're going to do the final project. So final Monday, review this, another exercise, Tuesday, final, Wednesday, final, submission Thursday morning. Thursday morning, we start a new course. Wednesday night is your last night programming for 2.5 weeks. I don't know if that's good or bad, but if you really want it, we can throw a couple of fun days in there of programming somewhere. Okay, So just one little bit more of a push, and then we're going to coast for 2.5 weeks, and we're just going to have some fun together. Okay. All right. Have a great weekend. Message me if you have any questions, problems, comments, concerns. Sorry, I owe you a little bit of time. We'll figure out your.
Oh, no. I figured it out.
You figured it out? Okay.
Yeah, I pressed something wrong.